My name is Carter Zink, CEO of DropChain. Today, we're going to talk about how to build a 100% no-code Web3 social media app. DropChain handles 100% of the Web3 complexity, including pre-made smart contracts, so that you can build a no-code Web3 app in days. And in fact, actually, we're gonna build a simpler one in how many minutes. First, if you haven't, go to dropchain.network and create a free account. Do the quick start guide, which is when you click get started, you'll see a bunch of information here. If you go to the documentation, it's one of the first things you see. Do the quick start guide and get started. And right here, we're in the API console. So this is where you're gonna go once you've done everything with the quick start guide. You'll get comfortable, you've been here before. If you want a written version of this, there's gonna be a link in the description below that walks you through everything that's gonna happen here. First of all, let's kind of think about what we wanna build. There's a million ways that we could integrate Web3 into an app, a Web2 app. One example could be if we wanted to create a social media platform where you can access exclusive content only if you have the NFT of the creator or the influencer. Kind of like a friend text style, if you've heard of that, where you have to buy a key, and if you own the key, you can get access into an exclusive group chat with that influencer, that creator. You could also do something like account NFTs, kind of like how Reddit has, or you could even tip people based off of their content. And that's how we're gonna do it this time. We're gonna keep it simple. When someone clicks on a button within your post, we're going to tip the end user, the creator of that content, some of your currency, some of your asset. In this case, we're just gonna test it out, but you can do it in any NFT or any token that you want. First, we're gonna build a no-code app using something called Bubble. Bubble.io allows you to get started for free. It's something we have a built-in plugin for, so you don't even have to integrate the API. You just have to download and install a plugin, which it's 2 clicks. And if you haven't created an account on Bubble, and something really cool about Bubble is that they have existing templates. So if you click resources here, you can see they have a marketplace. They have templates, which if you click here, we can go to templates, and they have a bunch of different ideas. So if you wanted to make a marketplace, your own NFT marketplace, you could do that with this. This has a free template. In this case, we're gonna do a little bit of a different one. We're gonna do an Instagram clone. So we're gonna search up Instagram. Here's a social media like Instagram. Let's try that one. You'll be able to click purchase here and it'll add it to your app. I'm gonna create an app. I'm gonna do no code Web3 app and click get started. And cool. Right here, we have our basically an Instagram clone. It's fully functional. It's branded, right? We don't have the customization and configurations, but it's pretty intuitive, right? If I want to go here, I wanted to change the NALF, whatever this creator of this template created, we can go here, we can click this, and we can change the image if we wanted to. That's not really challenging at all. You can change all of this for your needs. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna create an account. Let's try it out. We hit preview at the top right. We have all this information here. Let's try and sign up. We'll do test@email.com, test account, test, and then we're also gonna do test. Yeah, getting creative. And click sign up. We have an account now. This is on our template we just created as a social media clone. And let's create a test post. So test post 2023. Maybe we want to tag people. We could do that. We can customize the image here. I'm not going to do that. But once we hit the arrow at the top right, it will create a post. And here's our first social media Instagram clone post. For our demo, what we're gonna do is for every post on the platform, we're going to add a button down here that allows me, the user who's looking at the post, to tip the creator of the post, also my test account in this case, some of our currency, some of our asset. They could send an NFT if they wanted to. In this case, we're just gonna show a test version. You can let your imagination go wild on how you wanna build this. But just to kind of show off how to do this, that's what we're gonna do. So first things first, let's go to the home. So this is the home. This is what we would see normally. And then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna click on this end post. And let's try to go into reusable elements, and then we're gonna go to end post. And so now we're actually editing the thing that would replicate every time on a feed. If you had 50 posts or 1,000,000 posts, this would be replicated a bunch of times. And so we're gonna add a little icon here. So let's go, we're gonna add a money icon. We have some saved and ready to go. Icons 8 is a really nice one. Doesn't need to be fancy. Let's pick this one. Let's download it. We'll do let's do the 48 one's probably fine because it's pretty small at the end of the day. We'll hit download. Sweet. And then I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna copy, Command C, and then paste. Image B. Then I'm gonna take this static image. I'm gonna pick the icon we just downloaded, and then we're gonna replace it. And look at that, right? Perfect. Now we have this showing here. We're gonna call this something instead of image B. Let's call it tip user. Let's call it tip user button. There you go. And there we go. Now we have our button. Now, if we go back to this thing, to this page, this home page, you're gonna have a button here. You're gonna have a bunch of these things, but like you can't do anything with it. You just have a button here and it doesn't do anything. So now we're gonna actually first integrate the DropChain plugin. We're gonna do that in seconds. Then we're gonna create a workflow to make sure that when you click this image, something happens, and this something is gonna be powered by DropChain. So, first things first, let's go to the plugins. Let's add a plugin. DropChain, perfect. We're gonna install it. And just like that, you have installed the DropChain plugin. It's just that simple. Make sure you're on the most recent version. Right now it's 3.0.1. And then we're gonna go back to the console.dropchain.network, create a free account if you haven't already, and we're gonna generate an API key. For the sake of the demonstration, I'm gonna show you this. I'm gonna hit generate, and it's gonna generate an API key that we're gonna use for this test app. But for your case, make sure this API key isn't shown anywhere. The reason being, this API key should be secured, and you should make sure that nobody except yourself has access to this API key, because it quite literally is access into your app and into your account. So keep this safe, keep this secure, and store it safely. We're gonna go back here, and right in the API key section, we're gonna paste the API key. And this bubble handles all the security with using the API key safely, and so you put that there, and you're good for this section. Then we're also gonna go back to the design, and we're gonna click the tip user button, and then we're gonna add a workflow. And so this workflow is gonna go when the tip user button is clicked. We're gonna add a few things. First, we're gonna go to the plugins. We're just gonna do an asset, or we're gonna do send algo, right? It's just gonna be a test integration to kind of show you how this would work. And for each of these fields, we're gonna hard code information from your developer dashboard. So first things first, we're gonna copy the app ID. The user ID, and if you haven't done this yet, I'll actually just walk through it. Within your test accounts, we're going to use, in this testing account setup, we're going to take the sender is going to be user 1, test user 1, and that's going to send some of our test currency to test user 2. And so if you haven't yet, go to the bank.testnet.algorand.network, which is your testing faucet for free coins. We're going to copy the wallet address here. We do this in the quick start guide, but I'm going to do it now just in case maybe you haven't done this yet. Not hard at all. And then we're going to go back and we're going to make sure we copy both these wallet addresses and put them into this form. So we're going to get a few algo to test with. We're going to copy this transaction ID, and we can show that it goes through, where we are getting sent 10 algo to our AKED. If we go back here, AKED, exactly right. So now we have some test currency, test assets to try this out. We're gonna go back here. We're gonna do user 1, user ID. I'm gonna grab user 1. And then for test user 2, it's gonna be the receiver. And we're gonna send one algo. And so this is important, this is a good example. Algorand has 6 decimals. And so if you wanted to send one algo, one currency of Algorand that has 6 decimals, you need to make sure you have 6 zeros at the end of the asset amount you're sending, because you have to assume that essentially you have to accommodate for these decimal places. So we're gonna do 1, and we're gonna do a dot just to show this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as if you were sending 1 unit with point and then 0, nothing afterwards. You need to make sure that you have this format, and then we're gonna delete the decimal because it has to be a number. So when you send this one asset amount, it has to be a number. So we're gonna send one algo. It's gonna be almost look like you're sending 1 million, but you're not. In this instance, for algo, it's 6 decimals. So you need to have 6 extra zeros at the end. If you had an NFT that had 0 decimals, you don't need to include extra at the end. So this is 100% based off of how many decimals you choose to make. And when you mint an NFT, say from the dashboard, we recommend for your tokens to have 6, because that allows you to have 0.5 or 0.002 or whatever, all the way to 6 decimals. And then for the transaction note, we're going to continue on here just to give you some context on how this works. The transaction note we're going to call no code Web3 social media app tip. So like it's going to be we're tipping someone through the no code Web3 social media, and that's it. That's all we have to have for now. Now let's give this a try. So we're going to refresh this. We're going to click it, and you can see a little green bar at the top here. What's happening is your app is sending the API call to the DropChain infrastructure, and it's saying, here's this information, send the transaction for me. And go back to the AKED, and in a second here, 8 seconds ago, 9 seconds ago, 10 seconds ago, we sent 1. Remember how I showed you the decimals here? We're sending 1 algo from MQSK to AKED, and MQSK sent it to AKED. So just like that, we just did our first integration into this, into our no-code Web3 app, or Web2 app actually, with Bubble. We've integrated Web3 functionality using the DropChain plugin, right? So we could stop here, but I'm gonna kind of go one step further, and it's gonna be very basic. We could go crazy, we could build in a bunch more integrations. But we're gonna show you kind of how to make sure that API call worked, and then display that information on the front end. And so there's a few extra pieces we wanna do. So the first step, we're gonna create a new thing, and then we're going to click that. We're gonna create a new type. We haven't created this yet. We're gonna call it DropChain API response. So the response we get from the DropChain API plugin, we're gonna create a new type, and we're gonna create a few fields. We're first gonna call TX ID, or we're gonna call it transaction ID actually, and it's gonna be a text. And if we click this, we go to the result of step 1 when we click the button, transaction ID, TX ID, and that's it. We're also gonna do an additional field. We're gonna add each of these fields. So sender address as text, result of step 1's sender address, and then we're gonna do receiver address. We're gonna have to create a new field, and then we're gonna call this also that, call it the receiver address. And so what should happen here is after every time we send the transaction, we're gonna populate all of this information in our database. And so let's give it a whirl. Again, our test post is showing up. We're gonna hit the button to send the transaction. If we go back here, 12 seconds ago, perfect. Now, what we can do is we can try to find this information in the back end. Let's see if it went successfully. What's the transaction ID? So we can try to find it and look it up. So we're going to data, we'll go to app data, and then under the DropChain API responses type, we have all this information available, right? So let's do copy on the transaction ID here. We'll copy that. I do Command C. I'm going to paste it into the testnet algo explorer.io. And what do you know? One algo sent the information here. It was sent 22:24, so about a minute ago, which we just clicked the button a minute ago, so that makes sense. Everything is great, right? This is working exactly the way it should be. Now we're going to add an additional field. We're going to add an additional piece to this. We're first going to configure this to make sure that this works or doesn't work. And basically, we're going to make sure that if it works, we can flag it as successfully, and then we're going to use that success to populate something on the front end after this. And so we're going to make changes to a new thing, and we're going to change what we just created in step 2, which is we're going to create a new API response. So once we've changed the result of step 2, we're going to create a new field and call it success. And this is going to be either yes or no. Did the API call to DropChain, was it successful? Yes or no, was not successful. And so we're going to do a conditional, only when. And then we're going to say yes. There we go, yes. Only when the result of step 1, our first API call, the transaction ID is not empty. And so what does this mean? This says that, all right, I clicked the button, we made an API call to DropChain to send some testnet algo from user 1 to user 2. If the transaction ID is not empty, it means the transaction ID exists. And if it exists, it was successful. Because if it didn't exist, it wouldn't populate the database. We wouldn't have gotten that transaction ID back. And so this will only be successful if there is something in the transaction ID field. We're going to go here and we're going to duplicate. We're going to actually copy, and then we're going to right click and paste. And we're going to change this. And this time we're going to do no, only when the transaction ID field is empty. So example, we sent the transaction didn't work, transaction ID is empty, then it'll say successful, no, was not successful. And let's give it a whirl. Try to send another one as we go through it. We should be able to go back here within the data. Success is yes. Perfect. Worked exactly as we expected. So in this instance, it saved it as yes, it was successful. And now we're gonna do one thing. We're gonna add one more piece to this. If it is successful, then we're gonna change some information on the front end. And so we do this by first, we're gonna add a text. We're gonna put it right here. Honestly, if you're a design specialist, you're gonna cringe at how I make these things. I let other experts handle the design. I'm just gonna show you how this works, and feel free to make this as crazy or as pretty or whatever as you want. For now, I'm just gonna do success, and we're gonna add dynamic data. So we're gonna have text successes new state, which we're gonna call success, and it's gonna be a text because that's what we're gonna display here, is the text here. And we're gonna go back to the workflow and set the state of an element, which will be text successes success, where if the second step, the response success, is yes or no, which we've set in this third or fourth step, we're gonna have it as text. If it is yes, we wanna say something like the tip is successful. If no, we want to say something like tip is failed. And that's it. And so now what's going to happen is this success state will change this text when we tip the user, whether or not it's success or fail. So you can see the success here, we're gonna hit tip, and as this goes through, we're gonna see if the transaction ID is saved, it means it's successful, and this should say tip is successful, exactly as we expect. And so if we go back here, we should see 10 seconds ago it was successful, and everything is exactly the way we expect. That's successful, right? We did this right. We can add as much functionality to this Web3 app as we want. For example, you could mint 100 NFTs for every person who signs up to your platform, and then maybe only allow people to see your content if they own your NFTs. We actually have a guide below that shows you how to do this, how to mint those NFTs or tokens, and then how to token gate your app to where only certain people can do certain things almost exclusively. You could also allow people to create profile avatars that are NFTs that can be customized and configured. We have a guide on that as well, right? Mint your NFTs or tokens with metadata on IPFS, and then grab the assets your users own so you can grab that information. These are possibilities of how you can build a full no-code Web3 app with Bubble are quite possibly endless, but in your instance, that it's up to you and your ingenuity, and we're constantly improving and adding more smart contracts so that you can build more better Web3 apps. DropChain handles 100% of the Web3 complexity, including pre-made smart contracts, so that you can build a no-code Web3 app in days. If you haven't yet, please create a free account on dropchain.network here. And that'll go to the console, set that all up. It's 100% free to get started, and join the Discord. Both of those links will be in the description below. Myself, as well as my co-founder and other Web3 builders, are actively participating in the community, trying to help people like yourself build your first Web3 app. Thanks. Bye.